Hi guys, Joonas here, the founder of Accelerator. Welcome to the 7-Day Betting Accelerator, September 25 edition. Day one, the topic is how bookies profile customers and ban winners. It's a very spicy topic to get started. Just looking at the agenda ahead, just for context here, so that's a topic for day one. We'll roll into how the bookies actually make money from promos, how the maths works out there, the conversion of bonuses and how we do it at 90%, how you can too. How pro punters approach betting. We'll go through the sort of key traditional methods and also some really spicy examples that I've learnt and seen through my experiences in the industry. Day 5, we're going to the tipping industry and the scams within it. It's the Aussies love betting and there are lots of tipping services out there, but most of them don't perform. Day 6, we'll go into how much money there is in all the bookie promos. Australia has the most promos in the entire world and sort of break down how much money there is in it for us. And then we'll finish off with how to automate your betting. So, in terms of outcomes, I mean, what are we really trying to get out of this 7-day course? I'll go through my background really quickly in a moment, but I've worked in the betting industry myself. I've been a professional trader for a number of years, and really bringing over those to members in terms of industry insights to game the system. I mean, I've used that term there because there are lots of things that don't make sense and a lot of tricks the bookies use. So it is a bit of a game. It's not just theoretical. There's game theory involved. You'll get some insights into how to approach betting like a pro trader and certainly access to a system with truly defined edge. So day one, my background really quickly here as the founder of Accelerator now. So I did quant finance at Sydney Uni. I was a professional derivatives trader for a bunch of years. I'm still involved in that HFT, high frequency trading game these days in crypto hedge funds. I was at Bet365 for 5 years. I've been betting successfully myself, and Accelerator we've been going for over 6 years now. Background on Accelerator, just quickly, because you might be thinking this course sounds interesting, but what is this Accelerator thing that he's talking about? Accelerator, we have a racing model, takes advantage of racing promotions. We've got a same game multi model, takes advantage of the same game multi promotions that have become extremely popular these days. The bookies make a lot of money from them, but we have a system that beats them on them through a negative correlation model. We have some bonus bet conversion models, StatArb in racing, we've got a simulator in the golf, we've got a Betfair churner, go through those in the course. We've got racing automation, so automated betting through our service. And in terms of P&L, the average member is making about $300 a week these days, assuming $50 units. Quick disclaimer there, just to keep everyone in scope here. So this is a recreational product. None of what I say is investment advice. Profit's never guaranteed. Go to Gamble Aware if you have any questions or concerns about your gambling. All right. So why is profiling customers important? Well, essentially the bookies are trying to work out who's going to beat the house. You might remember, or you might have seen videos, read books on punters beating casinos, counting cards, etc. Essentially, back then, they were trying to work out who is counting cards and banning those people from the casino. Well, it's the same thing these days, just digitally. So the bookies are trying to work out who is likely to beat them in the long term. And what they do, once they've done that, is restrict them in any way possible. And for the losing punters, the punters who are donating to the bookies, really trying to just ramp up their volume, make more money out of them. So profiling customers is very important. It's really all about lifetime value. So they might give away some promos early, but it's really about how can you make thousands and thousands over a long term. In Australia currently, the stats we hear and see, both public and inside, we hear that about the average punter loses about 2K per bookie over a lifetime. There are a lot of bookmakers in Australia, and just to put that into perspective, we did a video a couple of months ago on how much the how much the average Australian punter loses per year. It's not far from that. It's about $1,800 from memory per year. But not everyone is average, obviously. There's a distribution. So just before I go into sort of how the profiling works, let's just get some perspective with respect to the bookie landscape in Australia. I've defined it as 3 tiers. Tier 1, Sportsbet, Bet365, my former employer. Tier 2, lads, Neds, etc. here. And Tier 3, basically the rest. Those that I didn't mention here, the Tier 3s. There are actually more. There are about 100 bookies in Australia, a little bit more, but these are really the meaningful ones, I would say. So profiling. So the bookies put customers into 4 buckets. 5 actually, because there's unclassified. So the first bucket is unclassified. If you've just opened an account, it's too early to tell. They don't know if you're going to beat them long term or if you're a degen. You need to basically show your hand. Second bucket is the standard punter. About 85% of Australian punters fall into this bracket. They're losing 50 to $100 a week. There's that number, 1,800. Overall degen, but sharp on a few. So this is an interesting one, and about 4% might fall into this bucket where overall their betting patterns have no edge. So the bookies are very happy to take on that punter. But they've got they know a few things. They can beat the markets on a few things. But frankly, they don't have the intellect, or they don't have the capability to really yield value from that edge. So overall, they're losing. Point here is tier 1. So the best bookies around, they don't mind those sharp bets from these overall degen punters. And in fact, they can use that as pricing information, move their markets around based on that. It's known as basically just framing markets based on flows, not just the bookie's own pricing. Then you've got the whale degens. Not many of these, around 1 in 200, losing thousands or millions a year. Then you've got the sharps, again, about 0.5%. Overall has the edge over the bookies. And importantly, they have the skill and patience to yield value from that. It's not enough to find an edge. You need the skill and patience to yield it. It's a forgotten art form of the game. So what are they looking for? Customers bet. So you've got really betting data and non-betting data. So in terms of betting data, if they're seeing that you're arbitraging them, maybe against an exchange or sharp bookies, they don't usually love that. Market movers, if you're always betting when there's a move, they take note of that, and they'll flag your account as in, this account likes to get on movers. Maybe they get ahead of the rest of the market moving, which they won't generally like. Middlers, so this is where you'd be getting on an over and an under with separate bookies and capturing a middle. Correlation with other sharp punters. So if you're betting whenever another account bets who is being defined as sharp, then they're taking note of that. Promo versus non-promo turnover. Obviously, if all you do is bet on promotions, then they will likely turn promos off for you. P&L, you need a sample. You need a statistically significant sample size to get any meaningful information out of P&L, but after a while, they will have that. Customer bets versus closing line. So if you're beating the closing line, then there's a sign that you might have some edge. Even if your P&L is down, it's an indication that long-term you may be a winner. Then you've got non-betting data. So IP addresses, are you linked to others? Are you a neighbour of a sharp punter? Has your device ID been used before? Credit cards, bank accounts, social media friends. So there's all this non-betting data that they can also look into to try and work out which bucket you fall into. What else matters? So tiering of markets. So NFL is considered one of the most solid markets in the world, especially when you're looking at handicap lines or totals. Like you can almost bet infinite amounts and not move a line. Whereas that's not the case with something like Romanian third division handball. So if you're beating them on NFL lines, then they might not care. The best ones won't. They'll go, oh, this is actually quite impressive. Whereas if you're betting on beating them on this sort of third division market, then you're at far greater risk of being banned or restricted with your betting. Withdrawal times, if you're pulling out money, firstly, it's quite rare for punters to actually ever withdraw. The stats are something like less than 10% of punters in Australia ever withdraw from a betting account. It's quite spectacular. So as soon as you're withdrawing, all of a sudden you're in like a 10% basket. So we've got some strategies around how to minimize the risk here, but basically that is another indicator that you might be falling into a sharp bucket. Betting times, if you're betting when it's really busy, then you're more likely to fly under the radar. If you're betting when it's quiet, it's the opposite of that. How the tier 1s versus the 2s and 3s behave, essentially the best bookies around there, and it's the case in financial markets as well, when you're looking at OTC markets and these sorts of things, really the best ones out there, they're less likely to ban or stop taking your bets, but more likely to use that as information and move their markets around. They might even move their markets, respect flow to a degree where they're arbitraging the rest of the market. That's kind of sharp. That's smart to do as opposed to just restricting, which is what the tier 2s and 3s tend to do. Some of these 2s and 3s also have some really sneaky strategies. I don't know how they get away with it these days, but they will claim that you're a money launderer or something else, and they'll freeze your account, require stat decks, unredacted bank statements, etc., to prove source of funds, etc. I think that can't last for very long, but we'll see. So what are the stages of restricting and banning winning punters? So stage 1, promos removed. It's pretty obvious, that one. Stage 2, latency speed bumps. So when you're trying to bet, they might hold your bet up. They might give it a 5-second delay. And if the price moves within that 5 seconds, they'll tell you, sorry, mate, you didn't get on. The price is now changed. They might refer your bets to a trader, which is a human. And some might actually even move the price before letting you on. So they'll just keep running away from you. It's a little bit of a sneaky tactic, that one, that the tier 2s and 3s sometimes, some of them utilize. Stage 3, really betting stakes are reduced. So we have minimum bet laws in Australia on racing, but we don't in sport. So they can actually reduce your stakes to 1 cent, for example, if they'd like. Stage 4, that's where they freeze your account and claim to have some sort of issue, potentially, as I mentioned just a moment ago. What can be done if you're restricted or banned? So promo ban is probably the most common one Edge Alerter members talk about and ask about. Sometimes they do come back. The TAB is very, very friendly generally with betting periods that are busy, like spring racing. They'll often come back or increase from if they'd reduced them in the past. But the tier 2s and 3s really do give you your promos back. In terms of the stake restrictions, they sometimes get lifted, but it might take a number of months. If your accountant's been frozen and you've got all this stuff requested of you, typically your account has been really black flagged and it's going to be looked at very closely from there on in. So it's best to just shut up shop at that bookie and move on. So in summary, why is profile important? We can see here it's really about the lifetime value of a customer, and the bookies are only really keen to take on losers overall. The best bookies around will actually let winners bet, and they'll use that as information. But unfortunately, most of the bookies out there, as soon as they sniff a winner or some edge, they will, as in the punter having edge over them, they will often restrict and go through those phases that we talked about a moment ago. Went through the bookie landscape, talked about the 5 buckets the bookies put you into, betting data and non-betting factors in terms of the profiling, and talked about these freezers here. That's the end of day one. If you like the video, give us a like. If you want to be notified when the next one goes live, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, our contact details are here. Cheers, guys.